Okay, this is a brake pad change for an '02 to 2010 Dodge Ram 1500. And what I'm doing here is just breaking the lug nuts loose. And you want to have your truck down when you do that. A lot of people probably know that, but some people maybe don't. Make sure you have your truck down. Don't have it jacked up when you're breaking those loose. Also, don't break them loose too much. Just break them loose enough to where once you have it jacked up, you can loosen them up. Go ahead and jack it up after that and put you a jack stand under it as well in case that jack fails on you. Never, I very highly recommend never just to use a jack and just depend on a jack. I had a cousin who almost cut himself in half under a vehicle once. But anyways, once you've got the vehicle secured, go ahead and take your lug nuts off. And if you've got an impact, it can make this go faster, but you don't have to have. As you can see, I'm getting it off just fine like this. Take your tire off, set it to the side. Mine is very dirty. I use my truck for firewood. You can see all that dirt there inside the wheel there. But now there are two 21 millimeter bolts holding this caliper bracket on. And so you just look back there and you'll be able to see them. I think I give a better view of them here later. And I think what I'm using right there is a wrench. I broke them loose with a breaker bar and a 20. I can't remember if I use a 22 millimeter, but that's what you need to use, 22 millimeter. And then you can take your caliper off and set it right up on top there. Just make sure it doesn't fall off because your brake line is attached to that, and if it falls off, it can damage your brake line, tear it, and then you'll have a leak, and you don't want that, and then you've got another problem. There's two 10 millimeter pins right here inside of this brake caliper, and you want to take those out. Those are what allow your caliper to slide back and forth to engage your brake pads on your rotor. So as I said, there's two of those. Take those off. I'd used an impact 10 millimeter, two 10 millimeter bolts. So the only tools you should need for this, other than to take your lug nuts off, are a 10 millimeter uh, socket and ratchet or wrench, and a 22 or a 21 millimeter socket and ratchet or wrench. There's how your brake pads should go in. I try to put that in slow motion. Once you put them back in there, and here's the easiest way to get them in. You put one side in at an angle, shove it in at the bottom, and then slide the top in. And you want to put those at the edge, both of them. So there's what the new pads look like installed, and here is your piston. So use one of your old pads, stick it on top of that piston. This is a single piston. Some of them may be two piston, double piston caliper. And I'm just using a C-clamp here with the brake pad. That way it doesn't damage anything, and that way it has something to push down on. And just go ahead and keep turning it until you get it all the way down. Now make sure you go all the way down. Once you get it all the way down, don't try to keep cranking. It'll be very hard to turn once you get it all the way down. But just make sure you go all the way down, because the problem I had ended up taking this back off because I didn't press it all the way down to begin with, and the pads wouldn't quite fit in there. When you install those new pads, they've got a lot of material on them, so it can be a tight fit. Okay, and make sure you put them in the right way as well. They need to go the same. The curve on them needs to be matching the curve of that rotor there. If it's sticking out the other way, you've got them on wrong. Go ahead and put your caliper bracket back on, and your 22 millimeter bolts. You can just hand tighten them for now. Make sure that slides back and forth though as well. Once you get the caliper put back together, make sure it slides back and forth. I mean, right now you're good to go. Make sure you use that on your pins right there. Those pins are what help this. This is what I'm talking about, sliding back and forth your caliper here. Once you install this caliper back on top of your caliper bracket there, make sure you grease those pins before you install them, the 10 millimeters, because that's going to help it slide back and forth. If it doesn't slide back and forth right, your brakes can seize up and just stick on you. So it's very important to do that. There's other places as well that would be smart to grease as well. The contact points on those brake pads at the bottom, the little slots to that you slide them on, you can grease those as well, and that just helps those pads to slide back and forth. See how I'm sliding it back and forth here now, just to make sure it's sliding back and forth. You want to do that. If it's not moving at all, it's something's wrong. So go ahead now. At this point, you're ready to go. Put your tire back on, install your lug nuts, and just hand tighten them, and then tighten them up as well with your lug wrench or whatever you've got here. That way, when you let your truck down or your vehicle down, your tire doesn't try to pop off on you. Don't just finger tighten them here. Tighten them down a little bit. And of course, most people know this, but use a star pattern when you do this. At this point, as long as you installed everything correct, you should be good to go. You shouldn't have to bleed your brakes or anything. There was nothing to take off here that would cause any air to get in to the brake system. Whenever you do that caliper or the piston, though, whenever you're pushing your piston in, just make sure you don't do it too fast, because if you do that, you can create some problems as well.